December 15, 2021, regular meeting of the Lake Bluff Joint Plan Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals. If we could have a call to order and roll call, please.
Certainly. Member Danley is absent. Member Fisher.
Aye, here.
Member Miller.
Here.
Member Russell.
Here.
Member Sorensen.
Here.
Member Toll is absent. Chair Peters.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Agenda item number 2, non-agenda items and visitors, public comment time. We allocate 15 minutes at the beginning of each of our meetings for issues that may not be on the agenda. Is anyone here tonight that would like to address a non-agenda item? Hearing none, we'll proceed to agenda item number 3, consideration of the November 17, 2021 minutes. Have all of the commissioners had an opportunity to review the minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Any proposed changes or other revisions?
No.
Hearing none, is there a motion?
So moved?
A second?
Second.
And that's to approve, I take it? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Agenda item number 4, consideration of the November 17, 2021 executive session minutes. I take it all the commissioners have reviewed that summary also, is that correct?
I would note here, since we don't often do this with this group, if there's a desire to discuss the content of those minutes or to make amendments, we would recommend waiting until the end of your meeting and discussing those in executive session.
Okay.
I move we recommend approval.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
And just to clarify, while approved, those will remain confidential. And then what we'll do is every 6 months, we're going to have to review them to determine whether we shall keep them confidential or that we shall release them to the public. So at some point in the future, this will be back, but they are confidential.
Do they actually include the minutes? I mean, things we said, or when it comes out in the future?
It's what you just approved. It'll be that document, are the official minutes, and whether it's the village board or this body, closed minutes stay confidential until we decide that there's no longer a need to keep them confidential.
All right, thank you. Agenda item number 5, public hearing variation 925 North Sheridan Road. Mr. Cole, if you could give us a brief overview?
Certainly, and on this occasion, I've asked Miss Samantha Lennox, the village's administrative and planning intern, to provide the staff report on this item. And if you'll give me just a moment, we will get that slideshow up here for you.
Great, thank you. So there's a residence and an accessory structure proposed to be built at 925 North Sheridan Road. The accessory structure will be an indoor sport court made to resemble a barn. The purpose of this item is that the applicant is seeking a zoning variation to increase the maximum allowable accessory structure height from the allowable 30 feet to a 25% increase or 37 feet and 6 inches. The maximum allowable height of the principal structure is 44 feet, but based on the applicant's application, it might be shorter than the barn due to Midwestern barns being typically shorter, or the principal structure being typically shorter than a barn. Next slide, please. There's actually a comparable accessory structure in the village located at 982 North Sheridan Road, which is a tennis house, and it is around 47 feet tall. Next slide, please. A member of the PCZBA asked Glenn and I to review 2 accessory structures which are fairly close to the subject property line and are actual barns. We have looked at the setbacks and height of these 2 accessory structures. Next slide, please. So first, looking at the left, 962 Sheridan Road, located at the north of the subject property. The setback of this accessory structure is estimated at 55 feet from the subject property line. On the right, 700 Crabtree Lane, which is to the south of the subject property, is 20 feet from the subject property line. The subject property is 71 feet from the southern property line. And these plans have been revised by the applicant. And I'll also note that the accessory structure is 220 feet west from the top of the bluff. Now, looking at the height, 962 Sheridan Road, the accessory structure here is 21 feet tall, and the accessory structure at 700 Crabtree Lane is 23 feet tall. As I mentioned before, the proposed accessory structure at the subject property is proposed to be 37 feet and 6 inches tall. Next slide, please. Now, there's also a tennis court at 700 Crabtree Lane, and this is 35 feet from the subject property line. Also note that the Zenny property, which is 700 Crabtree Lane, is privately listed for sale. 30 acres of this property is divided into 3 parts, which are each listed separately. One part, which is where the primary residence is located, is about 12 acres, which is being sold. The second part, which is about 13 acres, which contains the barn, is being sold. And then lastly, about 5 acres, which is known as Lot 3, is being sold. Next slide, please. So now we'll move on to the floor area ratio. The subject lot is about a little over 26 acres in area, which means that there is 116,943 square feet of floor area that can be built. The floor area ratio of the accessory structure is 3,675 square feet before calculating the adjustments required by the village's floor area ratio ordinance. So based on the floor area ratio ordinance, I'll just read that the floor area of any space with a floor to ceiling height in excess of 10 feet shall be increased by 10% for each foot or fraction thereof in excess of 10 feet. For purposes of the subsection, in the case of a sloping or slanting ceiling, only that area under a plan that is parallel to and most distant from the floor below it, and at right angle with the adjacent exterior wall or walls, shall be included in the additional floor area calculation. So since the height of the exterior wall is 14 feet at the eave, an additional 40% or 1,176 square feet would count against the floor area. This means that the regulatory floor area is approximately 4,850 square feet. Glenn, if you have anything else to add, otherwise I think the applicant can make his presentation.
Yeah. I think a good overview. I would just note for clarity that after the original packet was released, we circulated a supplemental memo with some of the items Sam went over at the request of one of the commissioners. I'd also point out too, we did notice today a discrepancy between the dimensions shown on the applicant's plans in their presentation, in the actual plan sheet, and then the dimensions that were shown on that letter of application. They've provided an updated plan sheet that I'll put up here on the screen, but essentially it is the dimensions on that. Well, here I'll just put it up rather than muddy the waters. Just one moment. So you can see here, these dimensions, 71 feet off the south property line, which is the side yard, 228 feet off the east property line, which is the rear yard. And that is closer to the plans included in your packet and not the ones shown on the on that letter of application. So we think this is a really a small oversight. We don't think there was any intent to deceive this group, anything like that. So just wanted to be clear that this here is presently what you're considering this evening. I think that's it.
Good, thank you, Mr. Cole. The petitioner is present, I take it?
Yes,
And,
Nick Robertson, Monica Robertson.
Can you come on up to the,
Well, anyone who wants to testify, I'd ask you to stand and we'll swear you in.
I'd like to testify.
Okay. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God?
I do.
Thank you. Please proceed. And please identify yourself for the record.
Great. My name is Nick Robertson, and just want to say thank you, Chair Peters and members of the PCZBA for taking the time to review our request. On behalf of my wife, Monica, and I'd like to present our case and provide context as to why we're requesting this exception. Last July, Monica and I had uniquely unscheduled amount of time on our hands on a Sunday. We have 4 kids, ages 16 to 9, and usually Sunday is running them all over town to various activities, but COVID had put a pause on most of those. And Monica had found this great piece of property in Lake Bluff, and she said, hey, we've got some time on our hands, why don't we go look at it? Neither of us had ever been to Lake Bluff before, but from the time we drove through town here to coming off of Sheridan Road into the farm, the 5 big white stucco barn structures, ducks, geese, huge dairy cattle grazing amongst 100-year-old oaks, we fell in love with the place right away. And then you take that road through the farm back to the property that we were looking at through 16 wooded acres into this kind of clearing on the east, and at that time of year, it's a very thick canopy of green on the ravine. You see thin ribbons of blue there, and it's just, Lake Michigan coming up to this gorgeous Midwestern pastoral scene. And I think I was out of the car for maybe a minute, shook the listing agent's hand, and I turned to Monica and said, we gotta figure out how to get this done. And thankfully, she was of the same mind, although she wasn't super pleased with my tact because it was pretty loud and the real estate agent was right there. And she said, what are you doing? I said, well, yeah, we love it, But in 48 hours, we had an offer submitted. And, we live in Evanston now, we love it, but we just knew this place was gonna be our forever home for us and our kids and where we wanted to build our first and last house. There's 3 things that really attracted us to the property that, all of which we want to honor and draw inspiration from as we start to make it our own and which feed into the request that we're making this evening. The first is the farming and agricultural history. My dad's parents were farmers. He grew up on a working farm in St. Genevieve, Missouri. That's been a big part of my upbringing. Monica grew up north of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. She used to show cattle. The Wisconsin farming culture is in her family. And, we've both wanted to be closer to this. Second is wooded areas in nature. Our 4 kids are all diverse, have diverse interests, but when we as a family get together, the thing that we really like to do is to get out in nature, hike, mess around. That's kind of like our thing as a group, and our kids have a deep appreciation for it. They're energized by it. We all love the fact that of the 26 plus acres we purchased, over 16 had a conservation easement. We thought that was awesome and ideal for us. And, we've seen bluebirds, heard great horned owls, coyotes. We've already been camping out there, spooked deer, picked blackberries, made grape juice out of, grapes that we've harvested. And so, we really want to preserve that which is already there, which is why, you heard the amount of buildable space that we could take up, and we're going to take a very small percentage of that, and we're siting the house and the barn in places where structures already were and are going to have the least disturbance to the land and the wooded areas. And the third and final thing is there's this rich architectural history there at Crabtree. Salam Berman, David Adler, Jens Jensen, some of the most notable and historic names in Chicago architecture have been involved in Crabtree, and we'd like to continue that tradition, which is why we're working with Tom Schaefer and Doug Hare. So on to our request. It was laid out. We're asking for an exception to build a barn that's 7.5 feet higher than, what is allowed in an auxiliary structure, but still shorter than what you'd be able to do in a primary residence. Structure for ourselves, it's for ourselves, for active family. As our kids get into the high school years, we want a place to play. But we want it also to fit with what we're doing. We want it to fit with the land, and we don't want to build just a huge compound there. We want it to, fit with the architectural and the agricultural spirit of the place. And we really want it to look like a Midwestern barn, which is why the structure is designed the way it is and the height that it is. And we're putting a lot of time and resources and bringing a lot of experts in to make sure that we do this right. So, kind of in conclusion, why we believe we should be granted an exception. If we look at the PCZBA standards of variation, we feel like we tick all 4 boxes, that it is a unique physical condition here because of the ravine system and the bluff and all of the wooded areas. We're doing this in such a way that we can enhance the rich pastoral, agricultural, and architectural history of the land. It's not merely a special privilege. We feel like we're ideal custodians. We want this to be our forever home, and it's family usage only, and we're not seeking to do anything that anyone else with a couple of acres in Lake Bluff would be able to do in building a gym or a sport court. From a public health and safety perspective, we meet those criteria. This structure is almost 3/4 of a mile from the main road. And as you can see, our neighbors are supportive. And finally, I think from a code purposes perspective, it's in harmony with the general and specific purpose of the code. So again, we really appreciate you taking the time to review the request, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Robertson. From the commissioners, any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple. Just, can you confirm in the introductory comments by the administrative intern, she referenced a wall height of 14 feet up to the eave line there, because there aren't any dimensions indicated in the drawings that were submitted. Can your architect, or you confirm that that is indeed the wall height you're sticking with up to the eave, 14 feet? Is that correct?
Yep, that's
Okay.
correct.
And then also you make reference to trying to match the Crabtree Farm barn structures at the entrance there, but then the submittal package talks about brick walls. So do you have any details yet on the walls of this building? Are they going to be white, brick, or, because I think it's stucco walls?
Yeah, Crabtree stucco with concrete tile roof. What we're hoping to do is a Ludowici clay tile roof. I don't know if you know what Ludowici clay is. It's very similar to the Crabtree roof.
Sir, if you can just speak at the podium, we just need to get this on the mic.
And if I could swear you in too first, sir, do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And if you could state your name for the record.
Tom Schaefer.
Thank you.
Tom Schaefer Architects.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, we're planning to follow the agrarian kind of vernacular architecture, but do a reclaimed brick barn. The house is, I've always conceived the house of being kind of a Belgian farmhouse look with the Belgian Ludowici clay tile roofs, reclaimed brick painted white, very modest structure, very kind of farm structure, and the barn itself would be a reclaimed pink brick, if we can find it, to kind of enhance or celebrate kind of the older world, kind of that it's been there. We're not trying to do anything too modern or too new. We really want it to feel like when you get there that it's actually been part of the farm for a long time. So yeah, so the walls are 14 feet high. It's a Ludowici roof and pink reclaimed brick on the barn, if that makes any sense.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments from the commissioners?
I have a comment after, do we make comments after any testimony from the audience?
Certainly.
Yeah, I just want to say that I think, in my opinion, based on everything I've heard so far, this is a wonderful proposal for the property. You know, it can be substantially built out, and we've certainly seen proposals over the time trying to request subdivision of the property. And it's such a unique property, it's wonderful to hear what you're planning to do with it. The only comment I have, or two comments. Number one, I don't have any problem with the variation because by code, you would be allowed to put a 44-foot tall structure 66 feet off the property line if it was your residence, and it could be 25 times the size of your sports court building. So it just, to me, doesn't make sense. It's such a unique piece of property to deny this when you could have a structure 25 times larger, much higher, and a wall that could go on for hundreds and hundreds of feet. So I totally support this. The only misgivings I have is with the presentation of the submittal letter. I think to call this a barn, and the drawings all just use the word barn. It's not a barn. It's an accessory structure housing an indoor sports court. And a traditional barn, I think, really is more like a gambrel roof, not a gable roof. So I mean, I would request that if a motion is made to support this, that we just delete the reference to barn, because if, without the conversation, if someone just pulls these drawings a year from now, the drawings just say barn, and it's not a barn. And it should be clear what we're approving, and we're approving an accessory structure housing a sports court. That's all. And I know the only similarity would be the terracotta roof or whatever that roofing material is. But just to call it a barn everywhere in your submittal material and on the drawings, it doesn't make sense to me for clarity purposes for the record. And that would be my only suggestion if this moves forward. But once again, I think it's a wonderful
If it's
proposal.
just the name, the barn, I don't really have a problem with it, but actually, a Belgian barn is not a gambrel roof. A Belgian barn is a gabled roof, and a gambrel roof is a Midwestern wood barn. And there are many gambrel barns, but those are actually much taller than a gabled roof. And so this is in the spirit and the style of a Belgian barn, which were brick and gabled. So we can forego the term barn if that's really going to be a problem, but it is styled after a Belgian barn.
But we're not approving a barn.
Okay.
And I understand what you're saying
Yep.
from an architectural
Okay,
thrust.
thought I'd like to clarify.
Could I ask that the tennis court slide be put back up? I think there's an error in it.
Sure, and then if you could come around to the microphone.
Yeah, I'll have to swear you in too, Mr. Litchinger. If you could, or do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And if you could state your name for the record?
I'm sorry?
If you could state your name for the record?
Oh, I'm
and your
sorry.
address.
It's Dick Litzinger. I live at 1650 Green Bay Road, Lake Bluff.
Thank you.
Yes, if that shows the feet, 35 feet from, I think that's the railroad tracks. But that's not where my property goes. If you took to the right, which would be west, that's where the line is for my property.
Oh, if I may interrupt, sir, and with all due respect, I understand the confusion, but the tennis court that we're looking at right here is not in Stonebridge. It's in Crabtree Farms.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What did you say?
Respectfully, sir, the tennis court that you're looking at is in Crabtree Farms, not in the Stonebridge property.
I see. Thank you.
Yeah, so,
I understand now. Thank you very much.
no, certainly. Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the commissioners? Deborah?
No questions, but I just want to add to what George said. I think it's marvelous. I think many of the older homes in our own community probably couldn't be rebuilt at the heights that they currently are. So, you know, having this push a height variance isn't a problem to me. I think that the fact that the neighbors are in favor of it, you're not pushing any of the setbacks, you're honoring the conservation easement. I love that it's Ludovici tile and the Belgian farmhouse look and everything. So no negative impacts on my part, and I'd be in favor of approving, so.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. Any other comments from the commissioners?
I'll piggyback on both of you. Actually, I'm going to clarify. I would be first of all, think this is a lovely plan and a great use of the property as well. I think from a detail-oriented perspective, I like the idea of referring to it as a Belgian-style barn because there's that, but I also appreciate that it will not be used as a barn. So if there's a way to phrase that, George, so that we can work this out. You brought images back of family farmhouses in Germany and that style, so, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sorensen.
If I may.
Oh, yes,
So-
Mr. Schuster.
So if you would like, and there's a couple ways to do this in terms of how you want to refer to it, is in your packet, I believe it's page 14, the approval order and resolution approving this. And if you go to page 14 and we refer to the structure as that they're going to construct a new accessory structure. If you desire, that could be amended to state the new accessory structure shaped like a Belgian-style barn and used for sports courts and other recreational uses. If you want changes to the plans, you can certainly request that too. But we can work into this, the slight modification, if that would be in the pleasure of this body. So these are your findings. You can modify them as you see fit.
Since I raised the issue, yeah, I have no objection whatsoever saying that we're approving a structure that will be styled like a Belgian barn, but it's not a barn. It's not a barn. And to just leave all the documents like this and a year later have someone pick this up and just see the word barn, I mean, people could actually challenge if the whole board gets replaced, the staff gets replaced, they'll go, well, this isn't what was approved. Just for clarity's sake, that's all.
It makes for
I-
clearer record, so.
Right. That's good.
Any comments from the public? Any additional comments from the public on this issue? Hearing none?
I'll just note aloud that we have, 3 members of the public also participating virtually on Zoom. We welcome question and answers. We welcome people to raise their hands to be recognized to speak. No one has done so at this time, as we're preparing to close the public comment portion of the hearing.
Okay. Yeah, the public comment is now closed.
So I'd like to move that we approve the requested relief in the form of the attached approval order, noting that the description of the structure will change to be styled like in a Belgian barn. And also, I also request that the various dimensional discrepancies, because not only were both of the drawings in conflict, but the table that was submitted had a completely different set of numbers for location. So just for the record, rather than having a packet that has all this bad dimensional information, if we could make sure that everything shows that it's 71 feet, south wall is 71 feet north of the south property line, and the east wall is 228 feet west of the easternmost tip of that reference bluff, just for clarity purposes.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Something I would just ask the group, so we have a bit of sense and direction as staff. So you'll see standard condition of our approval orders is that, you see these plans, whoops, just a moment here, showing this for emphasis. So you see these plans, you approve these plans, they have to build consistent with this whole set of plans except for minor site work and changes. And we know, of course, there's a lot of other planning to be done on this site. We don't know what'll need to change. We would appreciate, I think, a sense from this group just as far as, I would think if you have changes to the location of the structure that don't reduce that side yard setback and that don't go closer to the bluff, that those are probably minor changes to site work. If you'd like to see it again, if you'd like to be tighter about that, we can certainly do that, but just trying to anticipate that may come up.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Barring any further discussion, are we prepared to vote?
Yes.
Yeah, if we could have a vote.
Certainly, and on this occasion, I would add, you only have 5 members present, but you do need 4 affirmative votes to grant this approval order. Member Fisher.
Aye.
Member Russell.
Aye.
Member Sorensen.
Aye.
Member Miller.
Aye.
Chair Peters.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome to the village.
Next steps, Mr. Cole, for the petitioner?
Yeah, so just briefly, next steps, you're welcome to keep designing your plans. We'll have some paperwork for you to sign. You won't go to the village board or anything like that at this scale. This body has granted this variation directly. So a few things to sign, and then you need to pull a building permit within a year. So, and if you have any questions, you can give me a call.
Thank you. Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Yeah, thank you. All right.
Do you have a date when the next meeting will be?
Oh, we're gonna call the agenda item number 6 right now, and we'll just talk real briefly about that, Mr. Lutz. We're gonna call the agenda item number 6 now, and then we'll have just a very brief discussion. Otherwise,
And if you have comments, you are free to share them.
it's January
19th.
19th, 2022. January 19th? Oh, sir. Agenda item number 6, public hearing, Stone Bridge Development. Mr. Cole, if you could give a brief overview?
Certainly, we'll wait a moment for the wind to die down, perhaps. Nothing to be nervous about there.
No, it's all fine.
Quite windy instead of snowy out in Chicago this time of year, I must say. So yes, in short, this public hearing is concerning the Stonebridge development. Really, we anticipate as staff that your discussion this evening would be light. In essence, the village recently settled some litigation with the owners of the Stonebridge property, mutual litigation, both against the developer and by the developer against the village. The implementation of that settlement agreement requires a number of zoning actions. And so those are essentially revoke the previous approvals for the property. They affirm that right now it's zoned in our E1 estate district. They subdivide the property into the smallest number of lots possible, and then they may also include reflecting some rules of procedure that were agreed to in the settlement agreement for the next time that property comes up for an application. I would emphasize we have no applications from the developer, no prospects, anything like that of the next plan of the development. This is really just undoing what exists today and puts the property from a zoning perspective into a similar state as it was in 2006. Before we could act on this item, we need a physical prepared plat of subdivision for this body to review and approve. And at this time, that plat isn't ready yet. So unfortunately, we can't act on at least one part of this, and so our recommendation as staff is to continue, take comment from any members of the public that are here, and then continue this hearing to your next regular meeting on January 19th, 2022. I'll note also we received one written piece of public comment from Rick Lesser that was circulated to you all earlier today, and that we'll keep as part of the record as this issue continues to come back before you.
So the public hearing is now open. Anybody from the public wishing to address the board?
Not tonight, maybe January 19th.
Okay.
Okay.
And the recommendation internally is to address these issues when we next convene on January 19th. So the request is succinctly to move to continue the public hearing to January 19th. Is there a motion?
Before we do, could I ask these people what their concerns are, just to have us have a thought, what's going forward? You mind talking about why you're here and why you want to be part of this?
Should I have them up there?
Yeah, I'll have to swear you in.
Just curious where the conversation's going.
Yeah.
And Glenn, and then next, if there's anybody online, we should.
If you could raise your right hand.
Okay.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God?
Yes, I do.
And if you could state your name for the record.
Sure, my name is Charlie Bagdon, 323 West Hawthorne Court. We're the first street north of Stonebridge, just west of Green Bay Road. And the only reason why we're here tonight is that we heard that the village and the Stonebridge people had tentatively reached some kind of a settlement, and we just wanted to hear more about it tonight. But obviously, you said you don't have the plans, you don't have their subdivision information, so we'll probably come back again on January 19th just to hear a little bit more. And for what it's worth, we live right next door to Rick Lesser. So, and Rick and Carol and I have talked a little bit just in passing, but we all wanted to get more details, more information. So at this point, I guess we don't have any other reason to stay here, but we'll look forward to the more detailed information at your January 19th meeting.
Yes, tonight's a little more procedural.
Sure,
And we
sure, Gary.
apologize that we had to bring you out tonight, but it's pretty comfortable, so it's a good night to be out. But tonight, totally procedural and should be more substantive on the 19th.
Okay, Gary, that's fine. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks for thank you. I know all of you put a lot of time and effort into your jobs. We appreciate it. You probably don't hear, you need to hear more positive reinforcement from the village people, so we want to give you some positive reinforcement. I think you all are doing a great job.
Oh, we appreciate that. Thank you.
And I will add, if you're looking for more information on the village's website.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
on the village's website, we've got an FAQ up there. You can see the text of the agreement. There's some Q&A. There's a summary authored by members of Ben's firm, so a lot of information there.
Okay, terrific. We'll definitely look at that between now and January 19th.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. Agenda item number 7.
Oh, before we do that.
We haven't had-
Yeah, and I'll note here before a motion and a vote that we have 4 members of the public joining us on Zoom. As it talks about in our guide for participating by Zoom, you can use the Q&A function at the bottom. You can raise your hand to speak. And at this time, as we're getting ready to close the hearing, no one has done that yet.
Okay.
We're not going to close the public hearing. We're going to continue it to a date certain. So we're going to continue it to the next meeting date would be the motion to continue to, January,
January 19th, your
19th.
regular meeting date.
yep, it's 7 o'clock.
So do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion. Continue the meeting till January 19th at 7 o'clock.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Could we have a vote, please?
You can do this one by voice vote if you like.
No. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Okay.
Very good.
Agenda item number 7, staff report.
Certainly. So a very brief report this evening. You'll see at the very end of your packet that there is a proposed meeting schedule for 2022. We like to show this to you each year, both because the Open Meetings Act says we should have a schedule, even though your schedule is relatively set. But also, we usually have to look at adjusting a bit one way or another for Jewish holidays, frequently other occurrences that may come up from time to time. So in this case, you can see the dates in red are dates that we've adjusted or that are a little bit sensitive. The two, the big Jewish holidays shown on here this time around, as I understand it, are lesser days of those holidays where work is still permitted for people that observe the faith. If there are any adjustments you'd like to consider, we'd love to hear those from you and implement those as we publish the schedule going forward.
The one thought that I had, Mr. Cole, was possibly Wednesday, December 21, perhaps resetting that to the week preceding, barring any other conflicts, though.
We do have to work around other village meetings, but I know for sure that the preceding Thursday, the 15th, typically does not have any meetings scheduled. I'm not sure off the top of my head if that interferes with any other observances that time of year, but we'd have the room available at least.
Did you intend to move it to Thursday? You said Thursday the 15th.
Yeah,
You mean
Thursday the-
Wednesday the 4th?
Thursday, the 15th, actually. So the
Okay.
Wednesday, the 14th, would be the regularly scheduled meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission in this room. So unfortunately, I will not be able to give that one to you.
All right.
Is this official, or are we thinking about it?
If you'd like it to be official, we can make it official tonight.
It's fine by me.
So you said the 15th?
But Thursday night.
I don't know here, we'll adjust
I
the
didn't-
deadline back to match.
And personally, I don't have any objection at all to trying to move the March and April meetings. The March meeting, in addition to Purim, is also right before the schools being off for a week. I know a lot of people used to sneak their kids out a day or two early for a 10-day break, so I have no objection to try to slide those both a week earlier, when's March and April.
No objection for myself. That would be Thursday night also, Glenn, or?
That would always be a safe night, that second Thursday of the month. And I'm just checking my cheat sheet here.
Are both those dates affected by spring break?
The spring break, when I looked, was March 18th to the 25th.
Okay, what's the April date got to do with it?
What's that?
Are you saying move the April date as well?
Yeah, if that's Passover,
No, it's not Passover, it's,
oh, I thought that's what the table was indicating, April 20th.
that's not the first night of Passover, is it?
It's not the first night. It's, again, I am not well educated in these things. I have a chart. It says a word, I'll butcher the pronunciation of, Pesach, something like that, which I think is Passover. And that shows the 15th to the 17th as work forbidden. The 18th to the 21st is work permitted.
Yeah, so you're talking about Thursday would be just as bad as, so just leave it the 20th as far as that goes, if that's the only, thought.
Yeah, the Passover starts April 15th, which is the Friday, and that's the first night and the biggest one. But it doesn't end to the 23rd, but any time during that period, I mean,
It's not a big deal.
it's not a huge deal, not the first night.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And some people do a second Seder on the second night, but you should be okay.
So the consensus is to modify the March date and modify the December date.
You said not modify the April 20th.
Yeah, April will stay unchanged.
And the other thing to know is this, we have to publish our meetings for next year.
Right.
It doesn't mean that if something comes up or if there's issues, it can't be changed or special meetings could be called. It's just a matter we're required before the end of the year to put out the list.
Also, Purim is not a holiday we have to think about,
Yeah, I just wanted to note that on the
unless you
sheet.
want to all dress up, but that's in costume. But really, there's really no reason you can't do anything on that date as far as Purim goes.
You're gonna come dressed as Haman?
Yeah. I'm gonna come dressed as Natasha.
Apparently I have a lot of cultural education ahead of me on this topic. Didn't know anything about dressing as fish,
You can learn a lot from this
That was
commission.
Queen Esther there.
clearly.
All right. Any further discussion on the proposed calendar?
You'll reprint it, obviously, and
Yep, we'll reprint that, and we're happy to circulate a copy. Certainly, that'll be part of our application packet going forward.
And I think on this, we need a motion to vote on it. So if I could have that motion, please.
So moved.
second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Agenda item number 8, Commissioners' Report.
Just a question to staff to update us. I believe the village board the other night was going to vote on the ADU package and also the approvals for the Arden Shore property. Did they both get approved?
Yes, so in total, a few items of note. So the Arden Shore, the residential piece, that passed second reading, so that's done and approved and off and running. There was also a path being put in on the practice field part of it, the westerly lot. That was also approved. That's just getting a path in place while they continue to design the rest of the course. They're trying to get through the wetland, do the wetland-sensitive construction now while it's dry in the winter. The village board also approved first reading of the accessory dwelling unit ordinance.
Is there any discussion, one way or the other?
There was very limited discussion about just the definition question around, what's really like a grammatical phrasing thing around, having a separate entrance. One trustee was wondering if that meant, a separate, would that imply a separate curb cut or a separate driveway or things like that.
All right, any further discussion on Commissioners' Report? Hearing none. Agenda item number 9, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Well, have a great holiday season to all the
Yeah, you too.
commissioners.
Yes, you
Thank
too.
you.
Thank you.
Another great year, Mr. Chairman. We hope you continue for at least a decade more.
I don't
Get
think I'd
that on the
want to,
record right now.
I don't think I'd want to put the odds on that. Appreciate it.